Hi everyone today. I'm the founder and CEO of Scopio, and I'm really excited to present to you some heavy hitters. We have a really incredible panel in front of you, and they all are more than qualified to talk about this subject that, as Sarah just talked about, is one of the most important today in the industry and something that can really drive growth and expansion in the market. So I'm going to start with maybe the most controversial one, Eric.
I didn't know that was my role here.
Just to press some buttons. Eric is, one second. Eric is the founder and CEO of Hawke Media, a marketing consultancy based here in Santa Monica, and it's been labeled by Fortune magazine. For me, what the biggest honor is a business can possibly get is 50 best workplaces, and Forbes content marketing companies to check out in 2018, as well as by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing companies. A quote I pulled from Eric's LinkedIn is by somebody else that I thought really described what he's like is saying, Eric is a true multi-dimensional creative Renaissance man whose life is centered around creating value each day for any business that he works with. He's at Forbes 30 under 30, and there's too many awards for me to mention else. Go ahead, Eric.
All right, thank you. Just so I know who's in the audience, show of hands, who here works on the brand side and actually is at a marketing team? And who here works in, so brand side, a few. Who here is on the content side trying to figure out how to license more content? Perfect. All right, so I'm going to speak today from the brand perspective, just a little background. I've built and sold to e-commerce fashion brands, and then for the past 6 years have marketed over 2,000 different brands. We currently run marketing for about 475 different companies, from Fortune 100s down to tiny startups. So we do a lot in the licensing space when we're trying to get advertisements going, get content going, and we can't get the company to commit to its own production shoot or have the costs associated. So looking into it a lot, and what I want to explain is how they look at it from that angle so you guys know how to approach it, because we get called every single day by another company trying to license us content, and most of the time it falls short because they aren't actually solving the problems that we have. So to the panel, authenticity. When brands are looking at authenticity, it's really how close can they get your content to look like they had shot it themselves, look like it fits the brand. And the way we coach our clients on how to think about their brand is basically think about it as a person. And so the shortcut to this is a celebrity brand. When you see things like Honest Company getting Jessica Alba, or when Shoe Dazzle had Kim Kardashian, that gives them a shortcut as to this is who we stand for. And so when they're looking at content, when they're looking for video, when they're looking for these things, to remain authentic, it's would that person share this or shoot this video on their phone or take this picture or be in this picture? Does this fit that personality? And the way we lay that out is we literally come up with a full story. So again, if it's not a celebrity and if it's not a celebrity brand, we actually create that person. My activewear brand, we literally had a woman we had made up named Amy, that was like a big sister from Southern California, and we had this whole bio that we wrote, and it got more and more complex over time, but then any content we would use, anything we'd put out, any messaging, any branding, it was like, would Amy approve of this? Would this be something that would be on their Instagram, be on their Facebook profile? These are things that we had to think through when we were going through that side of it. So to remain authentic is to really stand for something and be someone. And so, I'm going to use the cliche in the room right now, which is how Nike with Colin Kaepernick, that could have been a big risk, but by Nike standing for something, their numbers exceeded their projections significantly because, yes, they alienated people as well. There were people that are totally on the other side of that whole thing with Colin Kaepernick, but they wanted to stand for something, and to them, that is their personality. And I honestly don't have a lot of insight of where that specific brand comes in, but it goes back to having that persona as a company and knowing, Patagonia these days is really the CEO's personality. What he cares about. He cares about the environment. He's outspoken. He doesn't care about money. He's not trying to maximize profitability, and that's why they donate, I think it's 1% of all their revenue to the causes he supports, which they're a billion-dollar company, so they're literally running over $10 million to charity to try to support the environment. He writes letters telling Trump that he's an idiot. He does all these things and stands for that. And in turn, the company itself, that is what they've become and who they stand for. And what that does is it attracts that audience. So if Patagonia is going to stand for the environment and stuff, when they're looking at stock imagery and they're looking at user-generated content, they're going to want things that speak to that. And really goes back to the CEO. Would the CEO post this? Is he going to post something where a bunch of people smiling on a beach, frankly, holding a bunch of disposable cups? No, that doesn't fit. We're going to take that one out. Does it, if authenticity is a part of it, does a stage shot of people standing at the top of a mountain high-fiving fit this? Or do they want just beautiful scenery that he would actually take a picture of if he was out hiking in Patagonia or doing something like that? So thinking about who is it coming from and who is the brand, like thinking about it as a person, is how we instruct these brands to do it, so that when they're looking at options for where they can get this content from, it's who's going to make it as seamless as possible to identify that content that will fit their personality. Because the other side of this is if you have to just scroll, and you can't search things based on the personality of your brand, it makes it a lot harder. If I just have to flip through content based on it was tagged because it has dogs in it, that's going to suck on our side, on the client side, to try to flip through until we feel like we found that thing that makes sense. So something we're looking to be created, something that some of the platforms actually do pretty well, is that context that allows us to search where it fits the personality of the brand. So, yeah. That is it for me.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right, up next, I would like everybody to welcome Sarah Foster. This is the first time she's in LA.
That's true.
Welcome.
As a New Yorker, I probably don't have that right, but some of you guys can probably do that. She is the Senior Creative Content Manager at Getty Images and works with a team of editors, art directors, and creative researchers to provide guidance to a global roster of photographers and videographers to curate the best Getty Images and iStock content for customers. She also has had the honor of editing some documentary book projects with it's no surprise because that's where she started her career, focusing on long-term documentary projects with no training in commercial work until the day she thought it might be good to actually get a steady paycheck, which I don't know about, and landed a day job in photo research at the Image Bank, pulling 35mm slides from hanging file folders for customer requests. Her love for photography started at an early age, wide-eyed and riveted by the magic and the medium to distill complex nuances of the world in singular moments, which is what photography is about.
Thank you. It's always strange to hear yourself with how you tried to describe yourself. And anyway, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. At Getty Images, our mission is to move the world with images. On the editorial side, we heard quite a bit about this in some of the panels yesterday, authenticity on the editorial side of our business and our archival content and what that means. On the creative side, speaking to how we supply all the challenges that Ethan just described on the brand side, it's a different kind of challenge for content creators coming into a stock context. Right? You don't know exactly who the brand is. It makes a lot of sense what he says if you're the single customer to figure out how to make your own voice more authentic and figure out the personality of your brand. When you're supplying content into our environment, you don't know who that exact brand is going to be. And so the challenge of what does authentic mean, what does representation mean when you're trying to create content, thinking of how many different potential customers you can make a versatile set of images or video clips for is a different kind of a challenge. So the thing is that every choice we make, all of us every day, is we're always choosing to tell visual stories with the images we pick, whether it's the casting that we do when we set up a shoot, or the snapshots we take to post to Instagram, or if on the brand side, what we decide to pick and share. The industry itself is clamoring for more expansive representation, not just authenticity, but actually more expansive representation, and that's really what I want to kind of get at in talking here today. because the world is clamoring for more authentic representation. Exactly like Sarah said at the beginning. A decade ago, what aspirational imagery was very specifically and deliberately something that did not look like your own life. That was what was considered. It was aspirational because it didn't look like you. And that's just not the world that we live in today, driven by many, many factors, one being social media, the availability of everybody taking pictures. We're very used to seeing our own lives represented, and that's shifted our perceptions, it's shifted our expectations, that in the commercial world, we expect to see ourselves represented by the brands that are trying to market to us. As consumers, we are all driven to brands and products that reflect our personal values. Some statistics say that more than a quarter of brand decisions today for consumers are based on the ability to identify your own values in that brand, exactly like Ethan just said about Patagonia, about Nike. We expect brands to earn our attention and our loyalty in meaningful ways. Stereotypes and stand-ins are just no longer acceptable. True life experience really needs to be the norm. And for us, as a vast source of the visual content supplying the commercial marketplace, we really are committed to the idea that we need to redefine visual storytelling in an age of inclusion. So when it comes to inclusive storytelling, we need to ensure that we represent life as it really exists. So this is, again, what I really am interested in getting at is authenticity. Authentic representation is more than skin deep. It's not just a lighting style or a simple wardrobe choice or an array of visual cues that can be approximated by an AI algorithm. It requires a wider range not only of models, but of storytellers, because the life experience and perspective of the person behind the lens is just as important as the models or the locations they choose to shoot. We need to celebrate a wider range of genuine human experience, images more of us can actually identify with. This is why we're pushing at Getty Images to move expectations and visual standards beyond diversity, beyond authenticity as these buzzwords, towards really meaningful inclusion. It's more than just race, ethnicity. It's also about age, gender identity, socioeconomic status, ability, sexual orientation, religion, regional relevance, and more. Inclusion is about understanding how all of these aspects can and do intersect to make us who we are, and therefore how we make our brand decisions and how we want products marketed to us. So we're seeing these changes very consistently reflected in search by our customers on the Getty Images site. Searches for the term inclusion have grown over 205%. Other search term rises demonstrate an even more complex interest in what that means, not just that word as sort of a trendy buzzword, but the combinations of terms that customers actually search for to get at what they're trying to get at. Combinations of terms like gender change, indigenous people, female leadership, diverse professionals, disabled accessibility. It really helps you understand that they're trying to get at a whole layer of content that is not just sort of not stocky pictures of posed people looking at the camera. A couple more statistics. Sales for real people have grown by 300% in just the past 5 years. Searches for real bodies have grown over by almost 150% over just the last 18 months. So I'll say the phrase real people has always a little bit bugged me. We're all real people. Even hired stock models are real people. But what it gets at is really meaningful. Having the individuals that appear in photographs simply be who they truly are rather than playing a part or faking a character. Now, in making content for a licensing library, on our platform, we do have a lot of user-generated content. We get that from some of our own creators who we encourage to shoot in a more, shoot their personal lives and give us what they would also post to Instagram. And we partner with some companies that supply user-generated content. But we work with contributors who are trying to really fulfill more than a one-off need for a customer, creating a lot of visual variety, creating depth of scenario in a circumstance, or topics like a business meeting that you're not going to readily find, you know, on Instagram and a lot of user-generated content sites. So we work in depth with our contributors to figure out how to match these two things, what they might shoot in their personal life or what is available in the look and feel that's appealing about user-generated content, but that actually creates content that's got a lot of versatility, has a higher chance of being consistently saleable, and really gives the customers a wider range of choice of what they need. Sorry, I realize I'm like going on and on. A couple more slides here. So one thing that we're really proud of, and one of the ways that we've developed this, is to create some partnerships that with contributors by adding on to our roster of contributors, because as I said, we really feel strongly that not only you can't be what you can't see, but who's creating that vision, what their perspective on the world is, and how they shoot the content that they shoot is just as important as who's chosen to be in front of the lens. Especially when you're encouraging contributors to shoot their own friends, family, shoot more personal work. It's really important that the diversity of the people shooting that content and supplying it to you really reflects a more inclusive view of who's in the world. So building on the work we've done at the start with the Lean In collection, we have created some additional great partnerships with the Refinery 29 No Apologies collection, which celebrates body positivity, a collection with MuslimGirl.com to showcase authentic imagery of Muslim girls of their own communities, the Disability Collection in partnership with Verizon Media and the National Disability Leadership Alliance, Disrupt Aging, which is a collection that we just launched in partnership with the AARP in the past month, the Nosotros Collection, something that we created internally to better represent the Latinx experience here in North America, and Project Show Us, which was launched in this past year in partnership with Dove and Girl Gaze to show a more inclusive vision of beauty. And just what I wanted to get at with what this collection has been exciting, or this partnership has been exciting, is it's really helped us get to even a new level of expectation where the contributor base was 100% female or female identifying or non-binary individuals photographing women, so women photographing women, and the metadata that actually describes these images comes from the models themselves, which in a stock library, you know, has been an interesting organizational challenge, but a really important one to say, you know, it's one thing to be what the picture looks like, but how do people find it? What words are defining that person? That should come from the model themselves as well. Just this was a quick view to say that one of the ways that we work with our contributors, we put out a lot of creative briefs to try to give guidance, give all this information and thoughts about the marketplace to them. But with these collections where we're really concerned about the expanding representation, we build out very in-depth collection guidelines that go below the surface of just saying, you know, shoot more diverse content or shoot what your life looks like. We hold webinars with these contributors to make sure they're really understanding this broader context of what's needed. And through our curation team, you know, we are careful that what then goes into these collections, like the Disability Collection or Disrupt Aging or Nosotros, really fits exactly the definition and the parameters that we've set out. So really it's important to us that this idea of authenticity is, again, I'm speaking mostly to in working with content creators who are setting out thinking, how do we fill the gaps needed in the marketplace and creating productions, that we move beyond tokenism, beyond just portraiture, to represent a whole person with really dynamic roles and full lives, beyond depictions to a broader range of visual storytellers who are sharing their truths, and even beyond lifestyle, to a more nuanced, rich, and varied range of creative perspectives from the ranks of who are the contributors supplying content into the marketplace. And so, yeah, this just, it's something that I think we feel very passionate about, certainly in the creative team at Getty Images and across the whole company, that we're really interested in or we feel strongly our responsibility for the role that we play in supplying the visual content into the marketplace, and that through that supply we're committed to trying to change the perceptions with power relevant imagery that increases awareness, breaks stereotypes, and drives advocacy for social issues. So that was a lot more. That was much prettier than I thought it was going to be.
No, that was amazing. I think everybody really valued the statistics and the deep research, and I wrote a lot of notes.
Ah, it's my kids. That's nice.
So up next is Keeple, who is the Chief Commercial Officer at Alamy. He runs also global sales and marketing. He combines a creative eye with the commercial and operational brain, and has worked in the picture industry.
Carry on.
For almost 30 years. He also started his career a little similarly to Sarah, rummaging through boxes of transparencies and losing his fabulous eyesight at the company that gave birth to Getty Images, so the rest of the world could see beautiful photos. Alan led a groundbreaking model of crowdsourcing before crowdsourcing was a thing, and letting an ever-changing market decide what defined a scalable image and sellable image at UK-based Alamy, shortly after its inception. He ran the content side there, which now it stands over 170 million images today, and is a published photographer, but also has a hand for drawing, so much so that he co-authored 4 cartoon books, which he's auctioning off after the panel.
Right, authenticity. So when, excuse me, when I was invited onto the panel, and it was talking about authenticity, I thought, oh, not again, because from the beginning of time, literally since these very authentic dinosaurs walked the earth, in my job, all you've ever heard is we want more authentic content. So when I was a picture researcher 30 years ago, it was you'd get a brief and it was we want real-looking people. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that again. So it's been around a long time. So anybody who thinks it's it's something which is now, that's not necessarily the case. But I think I'll move on to talk a bit about maybe how we've gone on a journey to get to where we are today. So, in terms of the pictures that are used, I think Sarah mentioned this in saying that a few years ago everything was all aspirational pictures, and there was nothing that necessarily people could relate to. But there's a very good reason why cliches are cliches, because popularity, I guess, is earned. It's not just created. So the pictures that people were using and have been using over time have addressed what the market really was happy and comfortable with using. People kept saying, I want authentic looking pictures, and if you did find any, which there weren't many a few years back, they then wouldn't use it, and then they'd use the cliched picture. And so I think that our industry and the sort of media world and the advertising world have been on a journey. So it's okay to have images that resonate with the masses, because if you're trying to sell pictures to the masses, that's not a bad thing, and we shouldn't be embarrassed about that. And so you've got to move with what they're comfortable with. So a little bit about Alamy and about how we sort of fitted into this. So when we started 20 years ago, it's actually our 20-year birthday today. A happy birthday to us. Brilliant. Good. Thank you very much. As Christina said in my bio, we feel we were the sort of first people to crowdsource, even before maybe crowdsourcing was a thing. Our CEO had the vision that we really wanted to be an open marketplace. So we wanted there to be as few barriers as possible to anybody who had an image to sell. And so what we did, we set up a structure whereby the only real barrier is the technical quality. As long as the technical quality is there with the image, we let people surface their imagery onto Alamy, and then we let the market decide. So coming back again to whether the market's comfortable with authentic pictures or not, I think we were there at the time when that market was starting to shift. And so you had advertisers and you had publishers who were getting more comfortable with pictures that maybe weren't that, we've all seen those blogs that are really annoying where it has those stock photography cliche blogs, and they're funny after about 2 or 3, you just give up and say, that's not funny. We work in this industry, don't take the mickey. But I think that what we tried to do is we tried to source a wide and varied and diverse collection, and we allowed people from all over the world, with all different backgrounds and different thoughts about what made a great picture, and we gave them a platform to show their work. And I think so we've ended up actually with a collection which is very diverse and has a lot of authenticity in it. So our friends Instagram. So coming back to this idea of authenticity, I can't say that word, which is bad because I'm on a panel about authenticity. We've all heard about that Instagram look. And when Instagram came out, suddenly everyone's going, oh yeah, we want pictures that have that Instagram look. And so, what, you want them heavily filtered or whatever, what did it mean? But it became a real buzzword. It sort of replaced authenticity for a while. And it was like, okay, we want that Instagram look because it's authentic, it's so real, it's so natural. But whisper it quietly, that is not true. Because Instagram is so curated. People spend hours deciding which of their images they're going to put up. And if they're anything like my daughter, they spend a lot of time working out which ones make them look brilliant. Yeah? Sorry, Molly. Is it a real view of the real world? Sometimes maybe, but a lot of the time it's not. And a lot of the pictures, on Instagram are posed. And there's a lot of pictures where people have, taken a long time to set it up. So has Instagram brought us that authentic look? We got so excited about it that we created an app called Stockimo where we thought, great, we'll get all these mobile pictures with that Instagram look. And we did. And it's done very well. But it didn't completely transform our business into a business that only sells mobile pictures. So what does it really mean, this business of authentic? So, and again, somebody else mentioned this before, that word real, it was you, Sarah, wasn't it? It's so annoying. People say, okay, we want authentic pictures, we want them to be real. Okay, so they want real pictures. And then people say, we want pictures that are not posed. So they want chaos, they want, one person looking over there not interacting correctly with the person over here. No, they probably don't want something that's that chaotic. And then people say, we want something that's real looking. So they don't want it to be real, they want it to be real looking. So over the years, what have all these people been talking about, Completely does my head in. But I think an illustration, right, so, and I apologise to the creators of this picture, but I know they're not in the audience, but now I know I'm being filmed, I'm in trouble. But this picture, it's an old picture. Okay, so to be fair, it's an old picture. But it's back in those days that we were talking about where, the world was pretty ridiculous in terms of, of course, everybody, if they're a family, they go to the beach and they all put on white clothes. They don't care that the fact they're going to get, they're going to get sand and salt water all over them. And they'll all be very happy. And they'll all have great hair, great teeth, they'll have a great dog, and, one of them at least will look at the camera, definitely. Pretty ridiculous, but this picture sold a lot of times, and you've all probably, those of you who created content have created content like this, because it's that, it's that aspirational thing. So these people, they're not real really. But anyway, so a family on a beach, it's always my cliched example, but a family on a beach, very popular stock photography subject. So what does a family on a beach look like now? So a picture that we had recently sent in to us was this picture, where, okay, so this is a family on a beach. Okay, it might be a single parent family. But the difference is that, it's cold, it's wet, you can't see the faces. They've still got quite a nice dog. But, is this now more authentic? Well, it is if you live in Alaska. Because when I take my kids to school, I don't have the Alaskan mountains in the background. So really, it comes down to one simple thing when we think about authenticity and something that's authentic. Really, what people are saying is they want a picture that their customers or consumers or readers or whatever can relate to. But we all relate to different things. So there is no magic authentic formula, I'm afraid. So those of you creating pictures, I'm afraid, I don't think it exists. But because we see the world differently, authenticity is different things to different people. That's me.
Sarah is also based in LA, too. You're an Eric. Sarah's passionate and guided by a mission of working with artists to create the world's best stock photography. She has held leadership roles at Corbis and Picture Arts, but most interestingly, co-owner and CEO of Blend, which she built for 14 years and sold, which is a leading agency on multicultural and lifestyle collections. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm in good company with lots of Sarahs today and good company with a lot of friends from the industry, so glad to be here. Yeah, so there's been a lot of, I think, really good insight on authentic, and it is kind of this generic word that gets used in different contexts and sometimes loses its meaning because of it. And I think it's really seismically evolved over time of what that means. As kind of been mentioned, there's been this this oversaturation that continues in social media. The visual, the people that are looking at visuals are much more sophisticated than they've ever been before. And as Alan had mentioned, everybody that has a social media account is micro-curating what it is that they do. And so they want to be represented in advertising. And so advertising has had to really shift how they approach visuals and the messaging that they have. I thought this was really relevant. In September 2018, Vogue had their first African-American photographer that shot for them for this Beyonce cover. The September issue is always a big deal for Vogue. 23-year-old African-American photographer. And this, like I said, was the first time in a 125-year history of this company that an African-American had shot the cover. In looking at this further, there's, beauty has always been something that's maybe a little bit slow on how they address. They'll have people on the front. The model might be African American or of color, but it's been pretty slow at really full inclusion. And there's still more work, I think, that they have to do of talking about things like people with disabilities, people of all sizes, different ages, but they're starting to understand that they need to be able to be more a part of the conversation and have representation behind the camera, not just in front of the camera. And I think whether it's beauty or it's all of us in this room, everybody that is having visuals that are represented in advertising, we all have a real responsibility of what that message is that we put out there and making sure that we are being truly inclusive, but that there's also, I think, an emotional connection and honesty, and also a certain amount of accuracy in what it is that we're putting out there, both in terms of how the talent's being represented and the information. Staying on this line with beauty, there's this Gucci ad campaign, and for them, authenticity is also looking at this is their way of how you celebrate diversity, and there's some big changes of, I think, even just beauty being redefined right now. This is a little bit more of an extreme example, but I think all the way through, as we're taking pictures as we have visuals in our stock agencies, that in varying degrees, we're going to need to be re-looking at beauty in a more emotional, honest way of talking about it not being something that's just covering somebody up, but really celebrating who you are and your individuality. Fenty Beauty line, rather than just, like a few different options for cover-up. It's a fuller range now. They really are leading the way in really trying to be more inclusive in a fuller capacity and really opening up this discussion in the beauty sense, in the beauty industry. And then, so with social media, it's not just a matter of those images, as Alan put it, of Instagram-like and things that aesthetically kind of take on that look of social media. The high-end advertising agencies are also feeling that pressure of needing to be able to have campaigns that really resonate. And in a social advertising sense, as they're doing digital marketing, they're having to really figure out how they can resonate with clients in a quick way. And this ad here for underwear that's for older women that maybe are having different challenges on that front, it's really brazen messaging. It's not something where you would just see it in a CVS and some small campaign. This is really in your face. And the model is confident in owning the fact that, yeah, this is real life. This is a real thing. You're seeing a lot of topics that have been taboo, that haven't been discussed in the past, especially with different women issues, that are really getting more attention and getting proper marketing that is more in your face. And then, kind of looking at where I think we've been in the past. In the past, you would see a lot more. I'm sure that, there are still people that shoot this way, but it was much more common, like if you were showing somebody of disability, that it's clear it's a rented wheelchair, it's an able-bodied person that's modeling in this to be able to maximize a business shoot. And there's a lot more responsibility of, like I said, accurate representation and really being thoughtful and understanding what it is that people's challenges are and celebrating them and what it is that is a real life moment. I think Sarah's totally right of how in the stock industry, how we've dealt with metadata and keywording, and how that information gets translated. That's also, I think, a big responsibility on our part and a big challenge to figure out how we make those changes. Currently, it's kind of a standard where if you're talking about something like gender, it's kind of like a check a box. You're either a female or a male. And there's so much more of a spectrum now that really needs to be represented in how people think of themselves. And we need to make sure that however it is that people identify is being properly put in the metadata and the keywords and searchable to our clients. Same idea. Woman with cancer, she really has cancer. Being vulnerable and also confident in her struggles. I think another change that we've seen in this word authentic is that it used to be that everything was aspirational. And with something being aspirational, it tends to lend itself to being more staged of how that image gets created. And we've really moved. There's still aspirational pictures, but I think there's been a real discussion and movement towards experiential. And with that conversation of experiential means that everybody wants to be able to have their real life represented in a way that is believable and, as Alan mentioned, resonates. So Adobe Stock recently entered into an exclusive partnership with the Visco collection, where we've handpicked different artists and have really given us an opportunity to be able to work with a really wide range of emerging artists that are from all over the world in a community where it is often people that are underrepresented and are really focused on self-expression. And this is really giving us an opportunity to be able to help give them a voice and to be able to also help guide them in a commercial environment and shooting for stock. So this is actually an image shot by a Latino photographer, Adam Perez, that is in Valencia, California, Central California, and he definitely, within this community, there's a real pride in inclusivity. This is his family, and in talking to him, he really, he got into photography in the first place because he wanted to be able to see people that looked like him and have that representation that he wasn't really seeing out there. So this is his family, and he has a really beautiful series where you can tell that there's that sense of intimacy of being able to shoot them and that familiarity and comfort level, but also just beautiful images of expanding the model pool that maybe we've had out there, and really trying to look at different local needs and what it is that it means to be diverse in different markets. So Abigail Okaro, she is in Africa and has had a really, she has this really sweet story where she works in a resort and she borrows her friend's, she has a camera, but she borrows her friend's laptop and Lightroom to be able to take the images then into post-production, and is an aspiring full-time shooter, but does some really beautiful work in capturing her friends in her market. Tessa Chung in China. She also does a lot of street photography, capturing what is real moments in her world. And that's it.
Okay, we have one golden question, and then we'll leave it to the audience to ask questions. My question for you all is, if you had unlimited resources and could solve the authenticity problem, what would you do?
So it turns out I am going to be the controversial one on the panel. I will say, and yeah, I think that there's absolutely a demand and a trend towards, you use the word experiential, authentic, real people, all the things that were said by my fellow panelists, and I don't think that's informed by data. And not that I, on a personal level, disagree with any type of inclusion or anything, I want to make that clear, but from a marketing level, aspirational is still what performs. And the reason that is when you're trying to convince someone that we have to get out, like we've been talking about the art of sort of this part of the panel, and the images are beautiful, that part of it's true. But to sell something, when you're talking about marketing a product or service, people purchase things to change their current state. That is why they do it. So if they're happy with who they are and they're happy where they are, they're not buying your thing, because they don't need it. They already are happy where they are. And that can be as light as, I'm out of shampoo, so now I need new shampoo. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like some huge, problem with their self-esteem, but something about where they're at means that they need your product or service because they want to be what that product or service will create for them. That is the aspiration. They want to do what it's going to create. So if you're talking about beauty products, with Rihanna's line, it's very important that that aspiration actually speaks to them and that they can achieve that with the beauty line, which is why having a wider array of options for different skin types is super important. But when they're marketing it, we saw it with the Dove campaign where they tried to have real people. And the problem is there's something inherently inauthentic by calling those real people. Like, they went out and tried to create what real people should look like according to Dove, and that campaign completely fell flat, because that's, first off, it's inauthentic in and of itself when you try to force it, and second off, that's not what people are aspiring to be when they go buy their products. They want to be what that Western perception of beauty is. They want to be that person. And so I'm speaking to the data that we've seen, because we test both all the time. The end consumer still wants that aspirational marketing approach. It's, a lot of times you get stuck with a marketing team or an agency that they want to be innovative, they want to win a Cannes Lion Award, and so they want to do something different. But when you look at the actual results, aspiration is still the result. And even, I'm going to go back to what I spoke about earlier with the Nike Colin Kaepernick. That wasn't about being real. I mean, that was authentic and there was something very real about it, but it was also like people are aspiring to stand up for something. People want to feel like they actually have a voice. And so the people that gravitate towards that really felt that movement. They aligned with what Colin was saying about just whether it was the actual thing he was speaking to or just the idea of speaking up for yourself. Something about that really spoke to people in an aspirational way, which is what made them like and respond to it. So it's still an emotional connection that happens here. It's not like, oh, that person looks like me, so now I'm going to buy that t-shirt. It's something that actually I want to be more like that person, whether it's a smile on their face that makes them happy or it's whatever it is. Even that bicycle ad that was shown up in the Alaskan mountains, like that is going to catch the person that lives in LA, not because they feel like they're going to go ride in the Alaskan mountains, but they probably wish they were. Maybe it's someone outdoorsy that wants to be doing that right now and they aspire for that, so they're going to buy a Patagonia jacket because it just gives that emotional connection to the outdoors. And that's what you have to think about when you're talking about authenticity, is don't get away from the aspiration because it still is what drives sales.
I mean, I would certainly agree with where you landed at the end of what you were saying, and you know, these guys have spoken to it too. It's aspirational, obviously. Yes, real can be aspirational. I mean, I think for me, so we've all spoken to a little bit. It's just that the range of what is presented as aspirational is what needs to keep expanding, and the people photograph, behind the lens shooting what is aspirational, how they define that for themselves because of who they are in the world, what the world looks like to them, where they live, who they associate with. They will create their own version, everybody will create their own version of what is an aspirational picture, and it needs to come from the multiplicity and exponentially more multiplicative range of sources to create that version of what is aspirational, because on the consumer side, we want to see ourselves represented, and we want that self or that sense of who we are in the world to be displayed to us as if it's a valid aspirational thing to be. So we want to see our own lives, and we want to see it in a shiny brand way that makes that feel aspirational. I would also just challenge to say that I do think that there is, I think we're kind of saying the same things, but I'd come around to say, we've partnered with Dove recently on this particular iteration of their Real Beauty campaign with the Show Us collection. And we've seen a very, very strong response in a positive way in terms of rises in searches, rises in sales of the images that are actually in that collection. And I think that it's really this point that one major thing that's changing in the marketplace is that consumers, especially, not only younger generations, millennials and younger, though I think this really holds true of them, are really making their brand decisions based on values, almost more than on the product that's being sold to them. They feel like they've got a choice of which shampoos. They're all equally fine, and what they're going to choose is the one that is making it in, renewable sourcing or, reducing plastic in their of their product or something along those lines. And I think that there are people of a skin tone that maybe has always been the one represented in beauty ads who will buy, Fenty products because it's being marketed to include people who are not like themselves, and that's a real decision that people will make. So I think it's a little more complex, and in a great way, we're all much more nuanced and complex than I'm only going to buy it if I see myself in it, but I will buy it if I see that this brand understands that there's a much wider range of who their potential consumer could be, and they want to make sure that that broader range of consumer really does have the chance to see themselves represented. What I would do if we had unlimited resources is just I would do a lot more of what we already try to do, but is smaller scale always than we would like, which is continue to expand recruitment globally in regions that we know that we just don't have as many contributors as we would like to keep bringing their own view to the table. And having more money to help support those. Like if I had unlimited funds, I would seed fund like all the great people that, can only do a tiny little bit to get started, and just help them get, help them with what they can get out there in the marketplace. Do a lot more education as well. It's something that we do a lot, but I think that to Sarah's point, like working with people who are newer to this industry, to really understand how to build on what their strengths are, build on their personal vision, but layer in a more sustained kind of better professionalized understanding of what it is that they do and how to shoot, how to create an actual full-on photo shoot production that they just might not have the skill set or the knowledge, or haven't gone through the learning curve to figure that out.
I agree with Sarah. I mean, joking aside, everything is moving in the right direction. And so if you said, what would you do? I wouldn't do anything. Just let it continue, because we've seen some great pictures that you would never have seen, in this environment before. So, I think it's going in the right direction. So I wouldn't mess with it.
Yeah, in addition to what,
In addition to what Sarah has said, I would also love to be able to put a lot more money into helping Trailblaze the way of redefining these things and continuing to push these boundaries. It takes definitely a lot of money to be able to kind of do that consistently. But yeah, between sourcing, helping lead the way, and social causes, I think that would be a good use of more and more money.
Yeah.
Great, well, thank you.